Hello, my name is Sean Phillips. This is my Module 5 presentation, Barriers to Web 2.0 for AEP 800, Innovative Technology Intervention. For this module, we read a couple different articles. The first article being Barriers to Using Web 2.0 in 21st Century Schools. In this article, what we learned is that many teachers are not implementing Web 2.0 type tools because of several different factors. First of those being a lack of time. Learning new technologies and finding resources for that technology can consume a lot of time, and teachers feel like with all the other things that they do in their jobs that they just don't have time to do that. Another struggle is just general training. Many teachers may have been in the career or the field for quite a while, and they feel like maybe they don't know how to use different tools, and so getting trained on that can be difficult and time consuming. So that keeps teachers from actively jumping into using some of those technology resources. Technology support is also something that is a barrier. There's nothing more frustrating than when technology doesn't work like it's supposed to, and many teachers don't have the knowledge base to be able to solve those problems, so it just creates some frustration. If they don't have proper technology support, it creates a barrier to using those tools. Also administrative support. If a teacher is innovative, they may not have the same feelings of their administrator towards that. The school culture itself even could be maybe not one of innovation, maybe staying in things that are tried and true instead of trying to go through and do new things. So that can cause teachers to not want to jump in. And then lastly, the digital divide. There's a big gap in resources available for affluent students compared to those that maybe are of low SES. And so, those students may not have access after school, and so using those tools is difficult for teachers. The second article that we looked at was called 7 Common Barriers That Obstruct Tech Adoptions in Education. And the first thing that I talked about there was just a vision. A lot of times schools are not forward thinking, and so not having the vision that is technology focused, then the focus itself is not on technology, so you don't see it develop over time. Another barrier is that the role of the teacher with technology can change a lot. Students have access to much more information with technology, and so the teacher goes from being the deliverer of information to now kind of facilitating learning for students, and that's uncomfortable for some teachers and a big change, and sometimes change isn't met well by people. Another thing is just the achievement gap, similar to what we saw above related to the digital divide. There is a big gap between students, and so wanting to implement those when your students aren't on the same footing can be difficult. And then also scaling technology. Trying to get technology to every student can be difficult. It's a big financial investment and also time investment to be able to do that, and so many schools are hesitant because of that. Funding. Technology isn't cheap. It takes a lot of funding to get all of the resources available, all the hardware and software necessary to use it effectively, and so that can be a barrier. And then lastly, curriculum and infrastructure. Most curriculum is not geared with a technology focus, so that takes a lot of time to be able to rewrite curriculum, and also establishing the infrastructure for it. If you have a network that doesn't work very well, is not reliable, then teachers are not necessarily going to be real excited about jumping in if they know that it can't be reliable. So building that infrastructure from a financial standpoint and just a sheer man-hour standpoint can be intimidating and cause technology to not be adopted as well. The third article that we looked at was called The Digital Divide, A Quarter of the Nation is Without Broadband. And basically this article is just a summary that, the use or the availability of internet is not equal around the United States or world for that matter. There are some people that have very good broadband and they have technology available all the time. Other times they don't. For me personally, I live out in the country near this town that I work in, and our internet provider is very frustrating at times. There's not always high speeds. It can take a lot of time to do things, and so that can be an issue. And the article tried to address how are you going to be able to improve that. a lot of times not just necessarily even, where you live, but just your SES status impacts it as well. And so how do we go about finding ways to fund and build infrastructure when it's not currently available? The article suggests that maybe students that have cell phones with internet usage on that could be kind of a gap, kind of help close the gap there, and they can use those things. But there are some limits to that because they're tied to, their plans. Do they have enough data to be able to use and things like that? The final article that we read was about open educational resources. There seems to be a shift in how curriculum is delivered or generated by teachers getting together and trying to pool information and activities and put it into an open educational resource where everyone can use it. The benefit of doing that is that now it can free up a lot of financial resources that can be used towards technology. Paying money for textbooks now could be used for some technological service or device or whatever each school might individually need. The problem with open educational resources, though, is that scaling can be very difficult. Trying to get that out in large amounts is going to be hard. And also, I know I have some teachers in my district that have used some of these, and they have found some mistakes in some different content that is delivered. So depending upon that, instead of, say, a textbook company that has people that, research and check and all that, the accuracy of the information, that can be difficult, where you as an individual teacher then would have to go and make sure that you're going through those things in the open educational resources. A positive about it, though, is that it is free, and also you have the ability to adapt it a lot of times and maybe tailor it to your specific needs. Okay. Do I think the digital divide can be resolved? In reality, I don't think so. I don't think we will ever be on equal footing. I do think we can improve it, but I don't think that it will be ever equal. Because in general, I think that people of greater financial means typically operate with newer things and more updated things. So I feel like the affluent students and communities will always have greater or more improved technology than most of, say, the poorer communities. So the way we can improve it, though, is we have to be creative. I think there's lots of different ways that we can try to, make it better. I don't know that it'll be equal, but I think we can make it better. Specifically things like, creating some business partnerships. You may find some businesses that want to help partner with this and provide some of the financial resources or infrastructure necessary to deliver to the overall community. I think schools themselves can be flexible by offering hours outside of the regular school day where students could have internet access. Community programs. We have a current community center that's getting ready to open, and one of their goals is to provide internet opportunities for students outside of the school day. A town near us called Eudora, I know that they were promoting that their community had helped raise like $100,000 to help provide hotspots for students that maybe didn't have that at home, so that they could then be able to use the internet and some of these technology resources at home. So being creative, I think we can solve some of those things. What skill set do I feel that 21st century students have to have before they graduate? Well, the first thing, I think every student should have just basic operational ideas or knowledge of how a computer works. They should be able to run a computer, be able to run its software. Most students should probably have exposure to either Microsoft or Google Suites so that they could function in about any environment. I think students should be able to get online and find resources to solve problems. They should be able to identify that, though, of what is a credible versus a non-credible source. Just because it's on the internet doesn't mean that it's true. So I think students should be able to determine by looking at it, is this a credible site? Is this information something that is accurate? I think that students should be able to collaborate with others and communicate themselves with others. The world is becoming much smaller. We're bringing areas around the world closer together through technology, and so I think students need to understand how they can collaborate, who they can collaborate with, and then how they go about communicating their own ideas. And then lastly, I think they should graduate with an idea of what it means to be a good digital citizen. There's a lot of negativity that happens with technology, and I think students should be able to conduct themselves respectfully and responsibly when they use technology. What impact has the global economy had on my personal use of the internet? Well, if we're talking about like financial economy, like I mentioned earlier, the world has shrunk down quite a bit. I've started to use the internet to shop and buying things. I've bought things from all around the country that I never would have even known about if I didn't have technology resources. There are also some areas even in other countries where things have been purchased. So that's been a big deal there. It has made me more concerned about identity theft. I have had credit card information stolen before. So being more concerned about that has impacted my use of the internet. If we're going from a knowledge economy, as a teacher, we're constantly getting knowledge from everywhere. It has really brought in lots of real-world resources from around the country for me to show students how their world is, how just the things that happen around here can impact the overall world. And then social media has impacted the internet a lot. Being able to communicate with others, keeping up with people that you've known for a long time, or using it to help identify other resources that can help you in your classroom. That's there as well. What technology training do I still need to effectively integrate technology in my current position? Well, I think I need to learn more about collaboration. How can I go about finding other people that can help instead of just staying within my classroom? I need to be able to go out and identify more real-world problems so that it's not just something that's in my classroom. Students can see how it impacts the overall world. I'm really interested in the whole robotics maker spaces and like artificial intelligence. I'm a science teacher, so if I could get into these things, I think that would be something that a lot of students would enjoy. And then I'm just going to need continuous professional development. Technology is constantly changing and improving, so I need to stay on top of that so that I can provide current information to students. Is my school equipped with 21st century schools? I think we have a good start. Just starting last year, we started a Chromebook initiative, a one-to-one Chromebook initiative, so every student in the high school has their own Chromebook. This year, we've expanded that to the middle school, and then it will start to go to the elementary school next year. Is technology driving instruction? Somewhat. I think it could be better. I think teachers right now are just getting familiar with the hardware and how to use Chromebooks, and then you have varying levels of teacher engagement in using that for actual technology driving the instruction. I think we need to expand our technology, though, more than just Chromebooks. Like I mentioned before, I'd like to see more robotics and artificial intelligence and maker spaces. Technology is more than just computers. We should be able to use some of those other things as well. What are the advantages of innovative practices in schools? Well, I think one of the advantages is that there's greater student engagement. Technology is part of their everyday lives, and so students are actively involved a lot of times when technology is involved. I think we're preparing students for future jobs. Technology isn't going away. Their jobs are going to use technology, and by exposing them to it, they're going to be better prepared for whatever future career they choose. It gives us a greater worldview. Your classroom extends beyond just your walls. It's throughout the entire world, so we can see what happens in other areas around the world. I think it helps lend more to problem solving instead of just basic memorization of content. So I think that's encouraging and promising and an essential skill actually for students as they move forward. What are some of the disadvantages that I see? I think funding is huge. Technology is not cheap. Trying to identify the resources to be able to access those is going to be difficult. I think staying current is also a disadvantage. Like I mentioned before, technology is always changing. How are we going to stay up to date on those things? I do think there are diminishing interpersonal skills. I don't think students interact as well as they used to. They don't know how to carry on a formal conversation outside of just their general talk with their friends. So I think that's something that needs to be worked on. I do think technology does propose more distraction. There's so many different things besides knowledge on the internet that garners students' attention, and I know I see that with Chromebooks dealing with that. I think sometimes we create reliance on technology over ourselves. Students don't think for themselves. They automatically go immediately to technology instead of using their problem-solving skills or just general knowledge. And then identity theft. We always have to worry about people accessing our information without us wanting them to have it. So, have I ever experienced problems with cyberbullying? Oh, yeah, definitely. Social media has always been huge. We have issues with that at school all the time with people posting things about other students. We had an issue with phones in bathrooms and people taking pictures, and so we actually installed selfie mirrors outside of the bathroom to hopefully try to prevent this, and they're not allowed to have phones in bathrooms anymore. Text messages always have the possibility of being something negative towards others and a bullying practice. I've had issue with inappropriate sites with student being on. But also, you know what? Once there was inappropriate usage that actually helped out a student. I had a student last year that had done a search of something related to harming themselves, and I saw it on a site that I used to monitor their activity, and that student got help. So overall, I think technology is good, something we need to promote, and hopefully we'll do so in the future. Here are my sources. I hope you learned something. Thanks.